Hello everyone, my name is Eric Ross, and in this video we're going to be going over the second part of the sticky form PHP assignment. And we're going to be dealing with three things. We're going to be adding support for drop-down lists, checkboxes, and then finally we're going to combine our PHP validation with JavaScript validation. So let's get right into it. So let's show you where we left off with part one of the video. Whoops. So in that one we ended up with a form that includes PHP validation. So if I leave some of the fields blank and hit submit, it remembers what I entered, and then it tells me error messages on the ones that I didn't enter. When we're done with this assignment, we're going to have a form that is going to have a few more options. We're going to have a couple drop-down lists, and then a checkbox. And it's also going to include JavaScript validation. So let's say I don't fill anything in. I'll get my JavaScript validation to work client side. I only enabled it for these two fields for now, so that's why I'm just going to fill these ones out. And also, if I select a drop-down list and don't fill in everything else, you see I selected male for the gender. And I hit submit, so it remembers which one I chose in the drop-down list, and then I get my PHP validation as well. So that's what we're going to be doing in this assignment. So I'm going to go back in the Dreamweaver, and I created a new form, a new page, and it's based on the exact same form we did during part one of the assignment, but I've added those additional elements. So I've added the gender, the country, the security question and answer, and then this checkbox on the bottom. And I've also added the PHP code necessary to validate those fields. So if I go in here, you'll see here's my PHP code for the gender, country, confirm, sorry, not confirm password, security question, security answer, and so those are the new fields that I added in the PHP code necessary. I'm going to post this file once we're all finished with it in the discussion thread, so you'll have access to all the code for this. You don't have to feel like you have to copy everything off the video. So the other thing I did was I already added the code necessary to check the checkbox option. So that checkbox I called it newsletter. And what this is doing is it's checking to see if the newsletter value is empty. If it's empty, that means the user didn't select the checkbox. So I'm saying if it's not empty, that's what this exclamation mark says, not empty, then that means the user selected it. And I'm going to print out a message, you'll begin to receive our newsletter immediately. Otherwise, you see I have no else statement for this, so otherwise it just doesn't print anything out on the page. And that's the other thing I've added in here is printing out all the new fields, gender, country, on the confirmation screen when the user has completed the form. So if I, probably just be easier if I show you guys this. So if I fill in everything, I select a question, answer it, and if I select the checkbox and I hit submit, then I'm printing out the new values, and I'm also printing out you'll begin to receive our newsletter. If I don't check this checkbox, I gotta refill in these passwords, then I won't see that message. I won't see that message about the checkbox. So that's how I'm handling it on my page here. So that I've already gone through and added the code for, so didn't want to make this video any longer than it needed to be. Now, one problem with this this current form, and if I go to it and show you, this is form part 2, is that when I start filling it out, and by the way, this one doesn't have any JavaScript validation enabled yet, if I check one of these drop-down lists, so I selected male in the United States and I hit submit without completing the form, it's not going to remember the options that I picked. It knows that I selected one, so I'm not going to get a message about it, but it's not going to remember what option I picked. So that's the first thing we're going to fix. And when you do that for a drop-down list, it is a little more difficult than doing it for a text box. So remember, for our text box, we put in this value, and we did a check to see if the variable exists, and if it does, we're printing it back out. Well, a drop-down list doesn't have a value. It has, if you want to remember which option was selected, you have to use the special keyword called selected in HTML, and that's exactly what it's called. So, for example, if I want this form when it's first displayed to automatically have the female option selected, I need to add the word selected to the option value. And if I do that and upload it, so now when I load this form, part 2, if I refresh, oops, I was using the wrong one, form part 2, if I refresh this, you'll see that female is automatically selected because we have that selected keyword in the drop-down list. So that's what we need to do here. We need to add some code that says, okay, if the user selected male, then we need to add that word selected to this option value. If the user selected female, then we need to add the word selected. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to delete this. And since I need to print out the word selected, and it needs to be right here, this is where I'm going to start my PHP code. So what I'm going to do is just add a line break here, and that's what I'm going to start my PHP code. And I'm going to use an if statement. If, now I want to check the value of the gender box, the gender select list. So this will be gender. And if it's equal to male, which is the value that this option value is, then I want to print the word selected. So if, oh, I was wondering why it was all red. It's because I have 2 single quotes there, so I need to get rid of that. So if post gender is equal to male, print selected. Okay. So I need to copy the same statement and do the same thing for here, but instead of putting male, I need to put female. And I'll probably clean this up a little bit. And I can either, sort of personal preference, you could make this all one line and put it back up here. You can leave it here. I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. That looks okay to me. So if I test this now, and I select a gender, I'm just going to select male, and that's all I'm going to select. I made a very silly mistake. Since I renamed my form to form part2.php, I need to change my form submission to form2.php. So I have form part 1 in it still. I need to add form part 2. Very common mistake to make, especially when you're renaming your pages. So let's try that again. So I'm going to select male. I'm going to hit submit, and it remembers male. If I select female and hit submit, it remembers female. And you can actually look at the page source, and go through and take a look. I'm going to scroll down to where that is at, and I see option value female and then selected. So because I added all those line breaks, it kind of looks funky in the HTML code. I could go back in here and get rid of these line breaks, and just put everything on one line if I wanted, which might not be a bad idea to do. So on the country one, we want to do something very similar. I'm actually going to show you a method that I think is a little easier, or at least it looks a little nicer in your code. I'm just going to copy and paste this. So this is using something called the ternary operator, and what that does is it takes an if statement and it combines it onto a single line. So instead of seeing an if and then brackets and then or if else, it takes it, and so this is the first part of it. So imagine that the word if was here basically, and it says if is set if the country value is set. So that means if they've selected something in the country list, and that's what this double ampersand is, means and the country is equal to United States, then this question mark means, okay, if these two things are true, then do this, everything before the colon. If it's not true, do this. So what I'm telling it to do is I'm telling it to echo or to print. I could use print, echo, either one. If these two things are true, then print then print selected. If it's not true, do nothing, or print an empty string. So I know that's somewhat confusing, probably the first time you see it, but it's basically just a short version of these if statements, and it's all on a single line, so it makes your HTML code, your page here, look a little nicer. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to add it for every option here. And then I'm going to go back in and change it to match the value of the option list. So the first one was United States. The second one here is Canada. So I need to change this country to Canada. The third one is United Kingdom, so I need to change it to United Kingdom. The fourth one is Japan. The next one's China. And then the last one is other. So now, when I upload this and test it, it should remember whatever option I selected for the country. So country, Canada, or United Kingdom I mean, submit, United Kingdom's in there. And if I look at the code again, the page source I should say, and I scroll down, you'll see that the word selected has been printed out. And you can see actually where it printed out the blank space for all the other ones that didn't match. So that's how you get drop-down lists to work. So I'm going to do the same thing for my other two drop-down lists. And you notice that these ones, their value is almost like a sentence, so that's perfectly acceptable. So if the security question is mom's maiden name, print selected, otherwise first pet's name. So I'll do these real quick, and this time I'll do them in their order so I don't get messed up. You have to be very careful when you do it this way because you want to make sure that it's exactly the same. So this value has to be, you have to copy this exactly. Every character has to be the same here, or else the match is not going to be made. So what you might want to do is just copy the value, go back up here, paste it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy and paste these from another file I have to shorten this a little bit. So there's all of our drop-down lists working. So if I select any of these now, they should remain the same. So male, Canada, name of the oldest sibling. If we go and look at the page source just one last time, we can see that here's our country, here's our gender selected, and then our security question, there's a selected word again. So the next step we want to do is get support for the checkbox, right? So we have a checkbox here. I would like to receive your newsletter. It's called newsletter, and the value is yes. So that means when the option is checked, when someone checks the checkbox, PHP is going to get that value as yes. So it's not really important what you put in the value unless you want to print it back to the user. You just have to set something in here. So how do we get the checkbox to remember? Well, the checkbox has something very similar to the drop-down list, the selected keyword, but for a checkbox it's called checked. So if you want this checkbox to be checked at any time, you have to add the word checked to the input thing. So if I do that, just to show you, when I load my form now for the first time, it should be checked by default. And it is, because of that checked word. So if you want to create a form and have the checkbox be checked by default, that's one way of doing it. But that's also what we're going to use in our PHP code to first check if the user selected something. If they did, we need to add that word checked to the input type. So I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to create a new PHP block of code here that looks almost exactly the same as the ones we did for the drop-down list. So I'm going to print something. If the newsletter checkbox is set, that means the user most likely checked it, and if its value is equal to yes, so this value has to match the value of the checkbox. If those two conditions are true, then it's going to echo print the word checked. If it's not true, colon, it's going to print out a blank space. So that's all we need to do now. So I'm going to save that, upload it, and I'm going to refresh my page. I'm going to fill in my form. I'm going to check one of these. I'm going to leave the rest of them blank, but I'm also going to check this box. So now, when I hit submit, it should remember that I checked that box. Hit submit. Has the ones I filled in, the rest are blank, and my checkbox is checked. So we're almost done. The only last thing I want to show you is going back and adding the JavaScript validation to this. So if the user does have JavaScript enabled, you'll get the best of both worlds. You'll get client-side validation, and then you also get the PHP validation. So I'm going to use the jQuery validation, which I've used in the past. This same technique also applies to Spry or the default Dreamweaver behaviors. So all you'd have to do is go back in here like you did in the past assignments and just add the JavaScript validation like you would. So I actually have it already set up. I'm using the jQuery validation plugin, and I just had the validation commented out. I'm going to uncomment it out. So these are the rules I have for some of my fields. And then I'm just going to go back in here and go back to my forms. And then if you did the jQuery validation, you'll remember that's enable validation. All you have to do is add class equals required. So now my name field is going to be required. My date of birth is required now. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. Country, email, I want it to be required, but also check for an email address. So it's required email. And again, if you want to use Spry, just use Spry as you normally would. Just go in and insert Spry element. It doesn't really matter what type of JavaScript validation you're using. So I'm just going to enable the basic validation for these, JavaScript validation, just to make sure they're all required. You don't have to require the checkbox. So now if I upload this, I should get my JavaScript validation. So if I leave everything blank, hit submit, there's my JavaScript validation. I'm going to start filling these in. And we'll show that so this will work. Since I have the JavaScript validation, it's doing all the validation for me. There's no PHP validation required. But let me go back and just disable JavaScript validation. So I'm going to disable JavaScript from my browser. I'm going to refresh the page. And so now if someone doesn't have JavaScript enabled and they leave the form blank, the PHP validation is going to run, tell them that they need to fill out their form. So that's a sticky form with PHP and also with JavaScript enabled as well. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. Thanks. Bye.